And not to take up too much more of your time, as we appreciate the time you spent with us to this point, but the one community question that I'm going to do my best to bring to you every time we do this, hopefully we get to do it more going forward every couple of weeks after council, and then hopefully in person when we're all allowed to do that again, is what is the city doing to help with some of the major issues in Jamestown? I know I spend a lot of time down there doing my job, and citizens have reached out to you, and they just want to know, outside of the park and other projects and the recent investment, which one of the councillors said was the first time in many years, what's being done about the crime, etc., right where they live?
Yeah. So yeah, as I understood the question, you don't want me to talk about the investments we're making or the parking. I'm happy not to do that. I understood the question to be a crime-related question. And look, I talk to the chief probably more regularly than mayors talk to chiefs, even though they probably do it regularly. Him and I have a pretty open line of communication, and we're on the phone quite frequently. I sit on the police service board, so I have for 6 years, so I'm familiar with the operation of police services. Let me just recognize, before I get into the answer about crime, how much work that and demand there has been on police services recently, and how hard the service has been working to keep the community safe. It's not an easy job. That is not an easy job, and it's a job that's become more difficult with time. It's become more acute recently. Part of this, Dan, goes back to the earlier conversation we were having, and the chief will tell you this himself. If you asked him for an interview, if you talked to him, people need care there. People need health care. The service has done a really good job in the last number of years of taking drugs off the streets. I'm not going to talk about the size of the busts or what they're doing there. I'm going to leave that to the chief. But they have, focused on that, and the chief has worked hard at focusing on the criminal element of the drug trade, and interfering with that and making arrests and disturbing that. But a big part of the demand in the police services are social disturbance calls. I think there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 80% of the calls, and a lot of those calls relate to addictions and mental health issues. And then our officers will often, they get tied up when they're on a call, especially if it's a more acute call. The more acute calls get more officers tied up in them for a longer period of time, which leaves less officers to be present to respond to other calls. And I get calls from people saying, look, I had a bike stolen from my garage, or I had this incident happen here, and it took 4 hours for the police to come, or 5 hours for the police to come, or the police didn't come. And one of the reasons why you might not have seen them is that they're tied up dealing with more serious issues. And these are all triage, right? So like, police are dispatched based on the severity of the matter. And if a severe matter comes in that needs a number of officers and they're tied up there, it'll be harder to get officers elsewhere. So I know that the chief has focused on the deployment of the service. I know that the chief is focused on presence, and I know that the chief wants people specifically in that neighborhood to recognize that they're there and that they'll be supported. But what we need to deal with these issues isn't the police aren't the right party to deal with a lot of these issues. What people need is support. They need housing supports, they need social supports, and they need medical health care supports. And until we improve the system that is there to support people that are in higher need, we're still going to see a lot of these social disturbance calls. So one of the things I can say is that, the police service board is aware of and conscientious of these challenges. The chief is, the service is, and we're doing our best to allocate the resources that we have to address them. I can tell you that never in the city's history have we spent more on policing. We spend more on policing than we ever have. And we're looking at what we can do to make sure we could sustain that and to continue to have the police available in this community that we need to keep the community safe. But I think on top of the issues that we're seeing that relate to the opioid epidemic and addiction and substance misuse, you have a lot of anxiety and tension in the community because we've been in a pandemic for 16 months, right? We've been in different stages of lockdown. There's much less activity. There's much less healthy activity where you see people out shopping and you see people out engaging in activities that are fun and that are social and that people are in big groups. You're not seeing that. Right? You're seeing a lot more of the struggle and a lot less of the celebration. And that comes with being where we are in this pandemic. And it has been a terribly difficult time for everybody. And I want to thank the community for the efforts that people have made to keep our community safe. We have, at the last I checked, the lowest prevalence of COVID in the province of Ontario. And when I looked late yesterday, our active case count was at 12. Like, we have done better than most any other community region, public health region in Ontario. And it's not by accident. It partly relates to our geography, but it certainly relates to the commitment that this community had to keep themselves safe and their friends and family safe and other people safe. We did not get the same uptake on, we got tremendous uptake on the vaccine, but we did not get the same provision of vaccine as most of the other communities in Ontario. Like, we were trailing right from the get-go. We were trailing on vaccines. They just simply weren't provided to us at the same rate they were provided to other places. We were started late, and then we were kept at a pretty slow pace. So notwithstanding that, we still did exceptional. And now we're catching up on vaccines. So the more people that get vaccinated, the harder it's going to be for the virus to travel through our community, and the closer we get back to normal. And I feel like we're getting there. And I know that it's been challenging, and I know that a lot of people are struggling right now. And I know that there are a lot of parents that are really disappointed with today's news that school is not going to reopen for a few weeks. And that's another year of grade 8s and grade 12s who are going to miss their graduation. And I know that it's been tough on kids not to be in school. So I want to recognize those challenges, and I want to encourage the community just to keep on doing what it's doing and to dig deep, because we are going to see the end of this. Life might not go back to the normal as we knew it, because now we have a new virus that we're going to be contending with for probably a long time to come. But I think we can get back to pretty normal, and I think we can get back to pretty normal in a short time frame if we keep on doing what we've been doing.